been having the most serious urge to talk about Jordan Peterson for like the last, month at least. Let me just tell you a little bit of my experience with him, and that I too have also been guilty of this, of just critiquing him as of recent, with his affiliation with the Daily Wire and being in the culture war and all that. But I feel like I gotta defend my guy JP. I feel like we gotta put some respect on his name. I'm wearing a helmet because I'm riding to Yamato today on Mother's Day to work on Mother's Day. And my mom yelled at me for not wearing a helmet. I mean, I could do with less brain damage, honestly. It's probably good. I fall a lot. But I wanted to talk about JP real quick. This guy, I remember first hearing about him because of Desiring God. And everybody was like, what's up with the Jordan Peterson thing? Who is this Jordan Peterson guy? He was a cultural moment. He, of course, spoke out against Bill C-16, which was a compelled speech law around using people's pronouns. And not for the reason that I think people thought that he did. Like, the thing is with JP is that he's a very anti-totalitarian guy, like to a fault. Like anything, he's an existentialist. He believed that if you couldn't speak how you wanted to speak, that you wouldn't be able to think. He believed you can't know absolute truth, but that you can know something that it's not, right? And so he started, I've heard him use people's pronouns before, just so you know. Believe it or not, there was an old interview, I think it was on some Canadian show about let me think here. Sorry, motor's going by. There was some Canadian show. It was kind of like a hot seat sort of show where they discuss hot topics, and one was on pronouns, and there were people there that were pro pronouns, and there were people there that were, of course, not. And even though JP was representing complete freedom of speech into a fault, because he believed that even dangerous social groups, like dangerous extremist social groups like like skinheads or something, right, that judge people based on their skin and put people in identity groups and even commit acts of violence against them, right? What was I going to say? JP's not part of that group, by the way. But he said there was a trans person there. And the trans person said, you know what? I understand Jordan's conviction not to compelled speech. Of course, I'd rather him use my pronouns, but I would never force him to. And the host picked up on that. He was like, Jordan, would you use her pronouns? It was a man transitioning to a woman. And Jordan was like, yeah, I would. Everybody needs to see that clip that hates Jordan Peterson. So what was the issue then? It wasn't the pronouns. It was being compelled. It was being strong-armed into people's ideologies, right? That was so fascinating to me. So freeing too, because he was a true individual. He could decide for himself, individual by individual, whether or not he would. We'll go down this little hill right here. Whether or not he would play their game. Okay. Anyway, this is what wasn't my point. That's what popularized him, is the free speech debate. But then once you kind of are initiated, red-pilled into JP's world, there's all sorts of these other areas to explain about or to explore with him, like him being a psychoanalyst or Jungian psychoanalyst. He said that he was told to avoid Jung in graduate school. And so what did he do? He went headlong into, Jung was writing a red book. He was speaking in different voices. He was hearing different voices. He was having conversations with the different voices in his head and labeling them and trying to map the territory of the unconscious, the collective unconscious. He was a weird dude. student of Freud, of course, you know. And the thought always comes up to me, that quote, JP would always quote Freud, and he'd say, or he'd make a quote about Freud. He would say, Freud gave us so much that, oh man, this relates to my video about create the life you want to live or create the meaning in your life. Okay, this is the rabbit trail from that video on this quote. The quote was, sorry, I'm a little out of breath here. The quote was, Freud did so much right for psychology that all people will ever remember is how he was wrong. I fear the same thing's going to happen to Peterson. He made the Bible a two-way street for me. I was just thinking on this last night. Originally, the Bible was a one-way street, where it was like, okay, it's a fast track to the truth, and you're either in or you're not, right? You see it one way, or it's way or the highway, right? Basic instruction before leaving Earth. But when I started getting into Peterson, I realized he opened up the symbolism of Cain and Abel in his first book that my uncle got me back in 2018 when I got married. His wedding gift, my uncle's cool wedding gift to me was 12 Rules for Life. And he described Peterson's style as sort of meandering. There's a funny YouTube comment on one of Peterson's videos that's like, this guy's the Jimi Hendrix of talking. What's up, Bubby? I like your dogs, man. What's this one? What's its breed?
I think he's pit bull and something.
Pit bull and something? It's a unique mix. This guy's the Jimi Hendrix of talking, right? I think that's a totally fair explanation. What people need to do if they want to appreciate Peterson for more fully how he is rather than the culture war is watch the 2017 Maps of Meaning lectures, where he explores the symbolism of Pinocchio. And the Pinocchio is about becoming a true individual, right? He wants to become a real boy, but he's a puppet. And so that means someone's pulling his strings, and his father built him, and his father gave him everything, basically, so nothing's really his own. But the thing that Pinocchio, because of the fairy or something, I need to watch this whole movie all the way through. I'm sure I did when I was little, or maybe I didn't. It was kind of scary to me when I was little. Or it felt too weird. I liked The Lion King and Toy Story and things better. Anyway, people need to watch the Pinocchio story, because it just shares so much of the collected wisdom of Jordan Peterson. And like I think it's episode 4 is about assertiveness. And Pinocchio encounters some tricksters characters. A fox and his kind of like lackey, who are just kind of like low-life thugs, and they think their life is, according to Peterson, they think their life is justified in crime because people are stupid enough to fall for it, so they deserve it. It's all a big joke to them. And man, it was so enlightening to hear Peterson break down these Pinocchio characters and see where I was a puppet myself, where I was not assertive enough myself, where I couldn't say no to things, where the right show of aggression is actually sometimes what people need that are trying to hurt you, okay, or take advantage of you, or even just manipulate you in subtle ways. I saw Peterson twice live. One was in Cincinnati, and the other one was Columbus, Ohio. One with my mom, one with my stepmom, and her friend Chris. The first time I saw Peterson, what I remember is how dangerous he felt. We're in the small theater in Cincinnati, and Peterson is like, he's extrapolating. He's nearly dancing on stage with his gestural motion. He's really stemming and vibing and following the thread of what he's saying, like a jazz musician, the Jimi Hendrix of talking. And he's, what would the word be? Urging people to search the depths of their soul for who they are and what they're supposed to do, I guess you might say. Two phrases I'd like to come back to. Who you are, what are you supposed to do? That's a question we all have, right? In this modern era. That question maybe used to be answered more readily for us. And so I hate to see even Peterson's illness. You know, he did a course on Nietzsche. Peterson did a course on Nietzsche, Friedrich Nietzsche, the death of God guy, right? In his Peterson Academy. And what was I going to say about that? Well, it's interesting parallels between him and Nietzsche, because Nietzsche was also an existentialist, and their illness and the just constant pain in their body and trying to alleviate that. And Peterson's kind of dealing with phantom pains, and I've had, and it was originally from benzodiazepines and depression, and I have heard certain Christians explain it as like Peterson's manifested a lot of ambiguity, and he's being sincere, but they think God has him up against the wall for conversion. And on one hand, maybe that's true. On the other hand, that's kind of a scary reading. Like, I don't know, it's almost like a scare tactic reading. I don't like it, even if it's true. We can't forget what Peterson did, how he was like King Cyrus. How he was like King Cyrus telling the Israelites to go back to build their temple. You know what I mean? The person that's outside of Christianity. Yeah, bro. Sidewalks are bad. Yeah, you been over there? Awesome, bro. Awesome. Social people this morning. Okay, just as I'm coming to a close here. Gotta be at work here in like 5 minutes. I want to say closing notes on Peterson. There's so much more to say. When we went to, okay, since it's on God and people kind of have him in a corner on God, my buddy Jared asked the other day, so what is that guy? Is he Christian? That's the question, right? And Peterson's whole thing has been, who dares say they're a Christian? Who dares say they are trying to imitate Christ, right? It's a niche position. And as Paul Vanderklay has pointed out, it's hard to live on that. But is it sincere? I hope Peterson doesn't slip off like Nietzsche did. And regardless, I just hope healing for the man and all the best for the man. And we should say a prayer for him. But when I was in Columbus, I'll end it with this. When I was in Columbus, someone asked the question again, and Peterson hates being backed into a corner like that, man. It feels like the pronoun thing to him. So get this, if people think he's a transphobe or something, people that ask him about Christianity, he almost reacts the same way. Okay, because he's an individual. He doesn't want to be a puppet. He doesn't want to play the ideological game. If people are sincerely wrestling through these ideas, great. But sometimes people just say it because they think they have to say it. They think they have to save it. And maybe they do. But on the other hand, maybe people are trying to fill a quota, or they haven't thought about these things as fully as he has. So when someone asked the question and they worded it very specifically, like if he's the incarnate God-man, Son of God, etc., all this theological language is packed in. And Peterson's like, I hate these questions, but since someone put it in the PowerPoint, they submit like PowerPoint questions for Q&A at the end. He said, I guess I'll answer it. And this is what he said. It's the simplest possible explanation. Occam's razor, the simplest possible explanation is the most likely one. He really likes the brothers Karamazov, Peterson. He's read all the Dostoevsky, all the great minds. And one thing that he vibes with, and it's easier to vibe with it in narrative because it doesn't box him in, right? It's easier for him to relate to it in a narrative way rather than like a hard propositional way. He said, even though Ivan, the great inquisitor, Alyosha's brother, Alyosha's a monk and Ivan is an atheist. And Ivan, even though he's way more articulate, he's way more the sharper intellectually and the more savage and the more convincing. He's even the more convincing. Still, Alyosha, in his simple faith, has ultimately a better place to stand. Think on that.